So given that, tremendous importance of partnership and inclusive partnerships that coordinate the sort of development effort and bring everybody on board, what does the UNDP look for in potential partners, be they NGOs or do you do much partnership with private companies? Maybe that's a slightly different angle, but in thinking about a good partner in Myanmar for the goals that you're trying to achieve, what are you looking for?
For us, one critical consideration in the work that we do is that before committing to any program or any initiative, we need to ascertain for ourselves that we have an exit strategy in sight. Development is a long-term phenomenon, and it is not reasonable to expect exit strategies from development interventions over 2 or 3 years. But at least there have to be some elements of exit strategy in place, some elements of the institutional capacity building that would allow UNDP or other development partners eventually to work our way out of those areas of interventions and either move up the value chain or get out of the country. So that is an important consideration. And therefore, in engaging with the partners, we believe it is important that jointly with the partners we identify those institutional elements, those elements of exit strategy.
Right.
That should be, if not the end result, but at least an important sort of side effect of our development intervention. In that sense, we welcome more partnership with local civil society organizations, or with the local governments for that matter, because they must be part of any plausible or reasonable exit strategy or institutional capacity in place. And also when engaging other development partners, whether it's in the official realm, the official development agencies, or international non-governmental organizations, to the extent possible, we're trying to remind that we need to keep this issue on the agenda, that we need to engage with each other, partner with each other, but the partnership for the sake of partnership may only get us this far. But partnership for the sake of building institutional capacity of the national stakeholders is something that we should all aspire to achieve.
Right. So you're looking for partners who have that capacity building expertise.
And who share our commitment and aspiration, yeah.
Great. So speaking from your own experience, what have you learned as a leader and a country director about what it takes to be successful in Myanmar? What have been the keys to success in your mind for someone in your position?
Well, I don't think I can speak of success yet. We've just started scratching the surface of some of these areas.
So humility would be number one.
Yeah, I guess humility would be number one, absolutely. But also, what I found after a year and a half on the job is that there is this potential mistake that we could commit by treating Myanmar as one development context. The development workers, whether working in the UN system or outside, we're sort of pre-programmed. We do the situation analysis, the context analysis first, and then on that basis we then propose the set of interventions. Well, that will not work in Myanmar. In Myanmar, we recognize, and that's the big lesson learned from me, is that there's at least 3 or 4 unique sets of development contexts. There's a context of Rakhine, and to some extent Kachin, the context of ongoing humanitarian hardship and ongoing hostilities, less so in Kachin now, thankfully, but more in Rakhine, that has its own unique characteristics and features. Then there is the context of the southeast and the east of Myanmar. The ethnic areas with the government and ethnic groups have signed a ceasefire agreement, so there weren't much of the open hostilities in the recent past, but the peace remains somewhat fragile, and there is a need to ensure that, again, I apologize for using cliche, the communities are the beneficiaries of the peace dividend. I mentioned to you the example of the Kayin family that was so happy that their daughter can travel to school 5 miles down the road. But there need to be more examples of that sort of nature. And then it's not only about the livelihoods type of interventions at community level, but also larger scale, eventually down the road, investments in the development of those parts of Myanmar. So that is quite different from Rakhine and Kachin. Right. Then there is central Myanmar, the Delta area of Upper Myanmar, predominantly Bamar populated areas, which haven't had open hostilities over the last few years or decades, but that doesn't mean they had no issues. They had no tension. There's a lot of tension at the community level. And there's a lot of also structural poverty issues. So that's a classical LDC context. So whereas you can compare Rakhine and Kachin with other parts of the world which are in crisis, you can compare Southeast to the countries that are recovering out of crisis. The Bamar heartland is more like your typical LDC, least developed country. They have their own unique development concerns and constraints, and they have their own issues that they need to grapple with as they move out. And then finally, there's Yangon and Mandalay. And Yangon and Mandalay are not least developed cities at all. These are, like booming Southeast Asian cities with vibrant infrastructure, entrepreneurship, but also their own sets of issues in terms of the development of urban infrastructure, access to justice, access to equitable services. So to conclude, this was the biggest lesson for me, that Myanmar is one country, hopefully will become strong and prosperous union, but for now, Myanmar is a country that is made of at least 3 or 4 different development contexts. Right.